Have you taken the time to think why you're getting paid? I'm not talking about what you're doing as a job. I'm talking about why you're getting paid. All right. In this video, I'm going to share what I learned about making money that changed my life. And I know it's going to change your life as well. So stay tuned. All right, so if you stopped and thought about why you're getting paid, right? Not what you're doing, but why you're getting paid, it might have gone something like this, right? Like, okay, well, dollars per hour times the amount of hours worked equals my pay. So I'm getting $10 an hour, I'm working 40 hours a week, that's $400 a month or whatever that number is, hopefully more. But maybe you had some sort of a calculation like that. But where did you get that from? Like, how did you learn to think about getting paid in that way, right? I mean, I guess one, if you are getting paid that way, that's one way to do it. But it's also how we've learned, through school, we've learned like that. Society, our parents, we've probably passed that down. And that's just kind of how we've learned to do that. And, like I said, that's the way most of us think about how we're getting paid. And that's really kind of like our views on making money. Now, when I started out, my, money making career was a little bit different than most people. Hopefully not everybody had to learn like I did, but when I was about 9 years old, my dad made me go work for him. My dad was in construction. And as you might imagine, if you've never done construction, it's not the easiest job, especially for a 9-year-old. And he would take me during the summer, and instead of getting to play with my friends, I'd be off working during the summer, and he'd paid me $1 per hour. Child labor laws. I was getting paid $1 per hour, but of course I was young, right? I had no skills. I didn't have any value that I could provide. I was young. As I learned more skills, then, I could make more. And what happened is my dad switched me from making $1 an hour to paying me per job. Depending on how fast I worked, I could make more money or I could make less money, right? Of course, I hated working construction. Sorry if you're working construction, but for me, I didn't like it. And so I said, hey, I don't ever want to do this as a career, so I'm going to do it another way. And in high school, I had a friend's dad who had this, my friend's dad had this like engineering manufacturing company, and he asked me if I wanted to start working for him. And I said, sure, what are we gonna do? And he's like, oh, we'll just be grunts, sweeping floors, taking out trash, etc. And we're gonna make $5 an hour. So, okay, great. $5 an hour sounds good. I started working $5 an hour. And basically I stayed in that job for about 6 years. And I went from sweeping floors and taking out trash and worked my way up. I continued to increase my skills. I continued to increase my knowledge. I continued to provide more for the company. And eventually I worked my way up to be in charge of the marketing department. And at this point, the company had been sold and sold and sold. And now it was a publicly traded company, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. And I was running the marketing department. I was traveling around the country doing trade shows. And I was making over $50,000 a year. And I was just barely in my early 20s. I had basically gone from nothing to making over $50,000 a year. I had 5x'd my income in about 6 years, right? The two things that I really had done was, one, I made more per hour. So instead of making $5 an hour, I was making a lot more, but I was also working way more hours. So because I was traveling all the time, I was getting lots of overtime, getting paid for weekends. And so I was working a ton of hours, a ton of overtime. In order to work more time, that was pretty straightforward. Of course, there's a big sacrifice there. So since I was traveling so much, I had a lot of sacrifice. Now, because I was so young, at least I didn't have family and whatnot to sacrifice. But of course, I had to give up lots of fun times with my friends because I was always gone, I was always working. So that was easy, you work more hours. But in order to get paid more per hour, I had to increase my skills, right? And so that's where I had to learn about these different parts of the business, and I had to learn about marketing and so forth to do that. But I was able to 5x my income in about 6 years. Now, I'm sure most of you guys have probably gone down similar paths in the sense where when you first started working, you didn't know about a whole lot of things. And then so early in your career, you make up the most ground because that's when you're learning the most and you're really improving your skill set the most. It's young to do it that way. But what happens is we max out our potential pretty quickly. And so for me, I saw this glass ceiling. I saw this ceiling. And like I said, we were in this pretty big publicly traded company, leading is in the medical space. And it was really big. And I was looking at the vice presidents of the company. They're making low six figures, 100 grand a year. I was looking at the CEO of the company making about $250,000 a year. Don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money, but I looked at that as my ceiling. And I'm like, okay, if the CEO of the company is only making that, like, I'll probably never get to that level. Like, I don't have the formal education that he has. I don't have the pedigree and connections that he has. I'll probably never get there. And even if I do, that's going to be it, right? And so that was kind of like this realization where I had maxed out what I had done. And again, I had done really well, but it was like looking at that and going, that's going to be my maximum. And so I had to kind of step back, and I started to look for ways that I could break through this glass ceiling. What could I do to go higher than that? That's where I started kind of on this path of like education, and that's where I learned this important lesson that I want to share with you today, because this is the lesson that changed everything in my life. I actually learned this when I was younger, right? When I was younger, I was getting paid $1 per hour, and then I started getting paid per job, right? And the bigger the job, the more money I could make, and the faster I was able to complete that job. I'd learned this when I was a kid, but I left it and I went back to getting paid per hour. But when I was a kid, I wasn't getting paid for my time, right? I'd left the $1 per hour and I went to paid per job. And so even as a kid, I learned that I was getting paid for the value that I was providing, right? Not for the time I was working, but for the value that I was providing. Now, most people measure the value they're providing in the amount of time. We're getting paid for the value that we're providing. That's why as my skills improved to my employer, I was providing more value to them. I was providing more value to their customers, more value to the world. And so that's why my pay went up. When I learned that, I started to look for ways that I could do this, right? I wanted to be able to make more money, and my skills were improving. And like I said, my value that I was providing to them were going up, and that increased my income a lot. That's why it 5X. However, I was maxed out. There wasn't a lot more ways for me to increase value in that role. I guess I could have gone to school and got my master's degree and then hopefully tried to get to a CEO at that point. So I started to look for other ways that I could provide value to the world, right? When I provide value to my boss, it provides value to the company, which provides value to their customers. And so I started to look at how could I bring more value to the world. So I had to start 2 side hustles. Now, the first one was real estate. All right, now you guys know I've talked extensively about real estate. I love real estate. I've done a ton of business and investing in real estate. It was the first side hustle I had was real estate, 1995. I didn't have any money. I was working a full-time job. I was really young. I was able to buy a bank repo. I had to buy a bank repo because I didn't really have any money. Like I said, I was young. I didn't have much money. So I bought a bank. Still didn't have the money I needed for closing costs and to fix it up. So I brought a buddy in and we worked on that thing. We fixed it up and we flipped it. And I made more on that one deal than I was making at my full-time job in a year. And that just changed my entire mindset, as you could probably imagine. If you think about it, I didn't really know how to do that. This was the first time I'd ever done it. So I had to increase my knowledge. I had to invest into myself. I had to invest in myself without any pay. Nobody was paying me to learn about investing in real estate. I had to work extra without pay. I had to read the books. I had to talk to experts. I had to follow mentors. I had to do all these things so that I could learn how to create more value in that space, right? So that was one. The other side hustle that I started, the company that I was working for, I'd been there for a long time, and I realized that the company I was working for was missing a big piece in the market, a side hustle, right? I started a part-time providing services to that segment of the market. I had to invest in myself. I had to create the skills, the knowledge, without getting paid for it in order for me to learn so I could provide value. And within 6 months, it was creating enough income to more than make up for my job. My 2 side hustles were doubling the income that I was making at my full-time job, all right? As the title says, I quit. And I realized that I should be making money for value by providing, not for hours. I created 2 side hustles. Within 6 months, I had doubled my income and I quit my $50,000 a year job. Right? I did that by looking outside of my existing job. A lot of you guys might have more value you can provide in your job. And of course you should do that. And that's what I did. And that's how I went from $5 an hour, which is about $10,000 a year, to $50,000 a year so quickly, because I was providing more value in my current job. But then I was maxed out. And so if you're maxed out, you need to look at how you can provide value outside of your existing job, right? So how can you bring more value to the world? That's the question. There's lots of ways to provide value. Again, I always want to teach you how to think, how to expand your thinking about this. Maybe you can quit. I did. I doubled my income. I quit my job and I've never had a job since. That's the only job I've ever had in my life. And that doesn't mean I don't work, of course, right? So when I need money now, when I want more money, I want to buy this asset, I want to take this trip, I just think about how can I provide more value? I look for ways that I can bring more value to others. And a lot of times people ask me, why the heck do I spend so much time making these videos? And that's because I'm looking to bring massive value to people any way that I can. So really, this is a massive paradigm shift. It's a way you can change your thinking to change your life. If you guys know, hopefully you watched the video a couple weeks ago, I made about a paradigm shift. I'll put the link up above. You can click on it and watch it if you haven't. You want to make more money, think about how you can provide more value. Let me ask you a question. What skills are you going to need to provide? What skills do you need to learn so you can provide this more value? You know, you're going to have to invest in yourself to learn these skills. I have a free guide. I'd love to give you these free guides. Hopefully they provide value to you. Download it. It's how to increase your net worth. And it's going to walk you through this kind of step-by-step learning, you know, exactly what areas you have to provide value and how you can increase your net worth by providing more value. So download the guide. Check the description links down below for that. Hopefully you guys liked this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Leave your comments. I'm picking questions to be answered on the weekly question and answer video. If I pick your question, you get 10 bucks. If it's the question of the week, you get $50. So make sure you're subscribed and you put your question in for that. And that's it for this week. To your success. I'm out.